Guys, I'm going to try to explain this well, but I have just kept failing this explanation. I've filmed this like 3 times. Welcome to the Nobles Nido, and welcome to how I am feeding my family in the midst of the unknown. Since Zeke's diagnosis, things have been tumultuous at best. Sometimes we are at the hospital for way longer than we think we're going to be at the hospital. There was a night when we had to go back to the hospital and we thought he was going to get admitted into the hospital. Just chaos. Right now, we're just in a season of life that is chaotic, but I have multiple children that need to eat. And it's not always possible for me to like whip up a home cooked meal, and I don't just want to eat pre-made things or takeout all the time. So I have been strategically planning our meals in a way that allows us to have meals for the future. You'll see what I mean soon. But I thought you might be interested in seeing how I am still feeding my family good home-cooked food in the midst of chaos. So without further ado, let's jump in. I'm glad you're here, and I hope you stay. Okay, see you on the other side.
So really, the name of this game has just been doubling whatever recipe I can that will lend well to the freezer and will allow us to have an easy meal to either throw together or just pull out and thaw. And so I've got really 3 different types of meals today. One that is just a pull out and thaw and it's ready to go after you heat it up. Another that has one final finishing step, and then one that just requires being thrown in the crock pot and then some more work. But all of these are just varying levels of easy, and they're all really good recipes that if we have a night where I can't be home, or where Bryson can't be home, or where our family is split up or at the hospital, one of us can pull one of these out and make it work. So this first one that I'm working on is just a really simple sloppy joe recipe. I'll link it down below. It called for ground turkey, I believe, but I just used some ground beef and it was great. So I'm just dicing up a green bell pepper and a white onion, and then, like I said, just doubling this recipe. And this recipe is so forgiving. I ran out of ketchup and a couple of the other ingredients while I was making this, and it still turned out just fine. So I'm just throwing some butter and some olive oil in the pan just to add some great richness and fat to the beef, which honestly probably didn't need it, it already had it. But listen, we're not going for healthy here, we're going for survival, okay? This is a season of survival. So once all of that was melted and nice and bubbly, I just threw in 2 packets of ground beef. I buy my ground beef in large portions from Costco, and then I go ahead and portion it out until what we would eat as a family. Typically 1 pound of ground beef is not enough for us anymore as our kids are getting older and eating. And I have fallen in love with using my cast iron. I've had this thing for a really long time, but I have just been using it non-stop lately. So then I just let the beef sit for a long time, like much longer than you would think, so that it gets nice and brown, and then I just flip it over and just keep using my spatula to break it up. And you can see my book in the background. I've been reading so much in this season. Reading fiction has just really helped me process everything that's been going on. So once the beef is completely cooked, I just go ahead and drain it out. We use like an 80-20, I think that's what they sell at Costco, so there's a good bit of fat. And then I don't wipe out the skillet, I don't add any more oil, just straight into the reserved beef fat. I add in all of my veggies, and it just makes the flavor so good. And then you really don't need all the extra oil. And then I'm just changing out my spatula because I had used that one with raw meat. But also the metal on the metal of the cast iron isn't great for your cast iron. And then my kitchen is really small, and in this montage I've just left in a lot of what it's like, and me just like running back and forth and digging through things. We have multiple pantry cabinets. I have the long pantry, which you can probably see behind me, but then we need to use the other cabinets because our kitchen really is not built for a family of 5, but we make it work because we love our home and we're just grateful for what we have. And then I got these new, what are these things called? Tablespoon measures for Christmas, and I love them because they fit inside my jars. If you've watched any of my other videos, you know that this is like a vendetta I have against round jars and round tablespoon measurements. Oh, and then you probably can't see her, but my little girl is always coming in. My littlest girl is always coming in to check out what I'm doing and come talk at me. So here I'm like using the last of my ketchup and running out of it, and It's been quite the travesty in our house because I also make homemade french fries and stuff a lot, and we just haven't gone back to the store for ketchup, but I'm so tired. I just don't have it in me to go, get more ketchup right now. And so then I'm also adding, I think this recipe called for mustard and maybe Worcestershire sauce, definitely some like salt and pepper. And then I'm adding in a little bit of chili powder, which brought such a nice flavor, like a little bit, tiny bit of a kick. And you can see I have diced bell peppers still on that board because I diced up the rest of that bell pepper, and then I just throw that in the freezer. And straight from the freezer, I will fry it in some oil with some onions and then use that as like a filling for quesadillas on a day when we just need to figure it out. Most of my baking stuff lives in the cabinet behind me, or the large pantry behind me, but this bag, we've been struggling with our brown sugar container because we figured out we were doing it wrong. We weren't wetting the clay piece of the brown sugar container that is supposed to keep it getting moist, so our brown sugar kept drying out and being unusable in our container. So I've just been keeping it in a plastic bag in one of my extra pantry cabinets, but it's always just, so fun running around my kitchen. It's great to have a small kitchen, honestly, because everything is right there. It is also hard to have a small kitchen because it is small and you can really only fit like one person. And so here's the final product. It's super not beautiful, but oh my gosh, it tastes so good. So good. And then whenever I bag these things, I always write the date and the name of it on the bag. But I also will use old bags. This is a new bag. I think I was out of old bags, but if I use an old bag and I've written on it, I'll either cross it off or put a piece of masking tape on it and label the new item. Don't be afraid to use your Ziploc bags. I know, washing plastic, whatever, but I mean, I do it with no shame. And then I am one of those people that likes to flatten out my freezer goods and leave them flat. Flatten them out and leave them flat. That sounds great, Sarah. But I like to let them freeze flat, and then they are easier to store. Okay, so this next meal is this is butter chicken, and I've made this countless times on this channel, so you can definitely check out one of my videos and find it. But this requires heavy cream and sugar to finish it off. So what I am doing is I made butter chicken for us. It's one of our comfort foods. And I made a double batch, but then I pulled it out before the final step of adding heavy cream and sugar. And by pulled it out, I mean I pulled this portion out and set it off to the side because heavy cream freezes weird. And this is one of those dishes that if I'm not home or if Bryson's not home, one of us can just throw in a pan, heat it up, and then when it's bubbly, we can just add in the heavy cream and some sugar and let it finish simmering, and we are good to go. About the same time it would take to cook up some brown rice in the Instant Pot, we could have this done. And I am writing a full amount of instructions on it in case Bryson is the one that is home and needs to cook it. And so here, I'm not making extra of this meal, but this is how we do burgers in our house, and we always have the stuff on hand to make burgers. And we always have bread. Sometimes you're not getting a bun with your burger in this household. Sometimes you're just getting some loaf bread, okay? But still, this is one of those meals that can easily be made by one of us if we're in a pinch and need some food. And ground beef, when it's thawed, like I do the same thing with ground beef. I thaw it flat, and it makes it so easy, I freeze it flat. Lord, y'all, I'm tired. Okay, I'm tired. I'm sure I have a great excuse to be this tired, but please, just give me grace. I'm so tired. Anyways, I love this food processor. I use it once a month, and I shred all of my blocks of cheese at one time, and it is so worth the cleaning of the food processor because it is amazing and so fast and makes the whole shredding multiple huge blocks of cheese so easy. And we will use the cheese throughout the whole month, and if you are really good about not touching it with your hands, then it usually lasts an entire month as well. We typically always try to have 2 types of cheese in our house, usually some type of cheddar, some type of yellow cheese we call it, and then some type of white cheese. Lately it's been the Dubliner from Costco, which by Kerrygold, which has been good. Sometimes it's pepper jack if we have like a really Mexican heavy meal plan, we'll have blocks of pepper jack, but we always have one of the 2, and that's just what we use in our recipes, and they can always be substituted out. It just works. So I've made burgers enough that I don't even measure any quantity out anymore, but I put a ton of garlic powder in. I couldn't remember if it was garlic salt, that wouldn't make sense. Garlic powder in the meat. I think it adds just such great flavor, and then a heavy dose of salt and pepper. Listen, you should be cooking with kosher salt. Table salt should not be on your ingredient list for anything. The coarseness of kosher salt, oh, it's just so good in recipes. And then I also add Worcestershire sauce, and then I try to take my rings off when I get deep in meat like this, but sometimes I forget. But I did good today. I took my ring off. My actual wedding ring broke during an event that I was helping put on a while back, and I just need to get it fixed. It's a vintage ring, and it just couldn't handle the strain and stress I put on it. So I like to make a really thin patty, and I salt both sides. So I add a little bit of salt into the meat, but then I also salt both sides because it melds with the fat and the Maillard reaction that you get when you burn it, and it is just so good. And I love doing it in my cast iron. One day we will have a grill. We don't have a grill right now. Or I'll have like a big griddle, which would make my life easier when it comes to like pancakes and stuff like that. But for now I use my giant cast iron, and I just let it bubble away. And here's the final product. We have them with both types of cheese, and then I never eat a bun with mine, just not calories I need. And here's Bryson's to show you that we are normal in some capacity and do have buns. And then those homemade fries. So again, not a meal that is living in the freezer complete, but just one of those meals that we keep on hand that's really easy to throw together. And so up next, I'm making something called chili Colorado beef. I had never made it before, and it was so good. It blew me away, and I took a risk. I bought enough ingredients to make 2 meals, not knowing if we would like it. But I knew enough about the ingredients that I felt pretty confident that we would like it. It did call for enchilada sauce. I am a princess, and fun fact, Sarah actually means princess, and my name is Sarah. But if it calls for enchilada sauce, I never use canned, because I always have the ingredients to make homemade enchilada sauce, and my homemade enchilada sauce is always better than canned enchilada sauce. And it's easy. It does require a little bit of time, but really honestly, it's not much. So the first thing you do is you blend a bunch of spices and flour together. You could do the flour separate, but to me it doesn't really super make a difference. And then you put a bunch of oil in a pot, let it get really hot, and you throw the spices in and whisk them for about a minute, and you allow them to do something called blooming, which is where you allow them to kind of cook and sizzle, and it lets out their fragrance and their aroma, and it makes whatever you're cooking so much better. So if you're cooking like any type of Asian or Chinese food, you should always bloom. Oh, here's that. It like makes a paste. So you want to kind of make a paste with it, and then you dump in your chicken stock or whatever, and you're kind of just like whisking and making a mess if you're me, whisking all the spices in. Anyways, back to Chinese food. If you're making Chinese food, when you start making your sauce, like let's say you're doing like teriyaki chicken or whatever, and you've cooked your chicken and you pull it out. When you make your sauce, take 30 seconds to heat up oil and throw your garlic and ginger into the pan and let them cook until you can smell them, and then add the rest of your ingredients. And I'm telling you right now, it's going to make your sauce 1,000 times better. Okay, I digress. Here I'm throwing stew beef, which is way more expensive than I thought it was going to be. None of you warned me that it was going to be this expensive. But I'm throwing it in the cast iron and trying to brown it. Well, it didn't really work out great. I had too much in the pan, and honestly, at the end of the day, I don't really think it made a difference. So I did not do it for the batch that I'm going to use to put in the freezer. But here I am taking some chipotle peppers and adobo. We are very wimpy. We don't like super hot food. And so I'm just scraping out the seeds because the pepper has such good flavor and the adobo sauce has such good flavor, and it's the seeds and the rib of the pepper that'll get you. So I just always scrape them out, and it works great for us. And essentially what I'm doing here is I am prepping one portion of this meal for the crock pot, and I am at the same time prepping another to go in a bag to go in the freezer. This is the best way to get ahead on your freezer food, is just take the things that you're already cooking and double them. And then in this case, you didn't even have to cook it off. So I've made a bag I'm putting half my ingredients in the crock pot, which I'm not showing, and half my ingredients in this bag. And I've put all of the instructions on this bag just because if I'm in the midst of the hospital with Zeke and my husband is trying to figure out like what do I need to do, I don't want him to have to wait on me. He's more than capable, but I'm the cook in our house because I really enjoy it. And so I don't want him to have to wait on me, or I don't want to feel the pressure of having to get him answers if I'm not in a mental capacity to get him answers on how to make something. So that's why I put all the details on there. This is great too if you're going to make food for somebody who's just had a baby. You should definitely bring food to people who have just had a baby, okay? So anyways, this bag contains chili and adobo, onion, the meat, some seasonings, and diced green peppers. All the recipes will be down below, by the way. And I let the enchilada sauce that we made earlier cool, let everything cool in the fridge, and then we had gone to an event or something, and then I came home and put it all together and put it in the freezer because I didn't want the hot liquid to, melt the freezer bag. Anyways, so you throw it in the crock pot for like 8 hours and then you shred it and it falls apart. It's so good. And then I stuffed mine into enchiladas with some cheese, and you take all the sauce that you cooked everything in and you drizzle it all over the top and put some cheese on it and pop them under the broiler, and it's so good. But if you don't want to go that extra step, just cook up some rice and make like a burrito bowl. And it's so good. You could throw it on a salad, make like a taco salad. This was such a win for us. Such a win.
So that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for being here. If you haven't yet, please consider liking and subscribing, following along with our journey. I'll leave a video about Zeke's diagnosis in the description, as well as a place where you can follow along more intimately with our story as it progresses. I know my videos haven't been consistent. I'm hoping to get back into making videos on a weekly basis. I'm just really tired, and life is really chaotic, and this new rhythm that's not really a rhythm because it changes like every month with our chemo treatments. It's hard to get my feet back under me, but hopefully I will be back soon, definitely with things like grocery hauls and stuff like that, because those are easy to film. So we love you. Thank you for being here. We could not make it without all of you. So see you next time. Bye-bye.